The four-star Marine general collapsed between cereal boxes, his knees folding as if someone had cut his strings. Medals struck the linoleum with a thin metallic clink that sounded wrong in a suburban grocery store. 1 second he was reaching for cornflakes, the next his chest seized, breath gone, vision tunneling. Shoppers froze. A woman whispered, "Oh my God," backing away. A man stared, hands useless at his sides. Someone yelled to call 911, but no one moved. Robert Hayes lay on the floor, lips turning blue, heart stuttering into silence, a life of command reduced to a body. People stepped around. Fear thickened the air. Carts rattled, fluorescent lights hummed. Then sneakers slapped the floor hard and fast. From 4 aisles away, a woman in a blue scrub jacket broke into a sprint, eyes locked, jaw set. She didn't hesitate. She dropped to her knees and took control, as if this place had always been a battlefield. She pressed 2 fingers to his neck, not searching, confirming. Nothing. Her breath stayed steady while the crowd fractured around them. "He's not breathing," a middle-aged man said, voice cracking, already shaking his head as if surrender were the only option. She didn't look up. "Call 911 now," she said, low and absolute, the kind of voice that leaves no room for debate. A teenage stock clerk fumbled for his phone. Someone sobbed. Someone filmed. The woman rolled him flat, palms finding the center of his chest with practiced certainty. Down. Hard. Fast. Bone met bone. The sound was sharp. Necessary. Faces tightened. A shopper turned away, unable to watch. She counted under her breath, shoulders locked, rhythm relentless. Then, without realizing she'd crossed a line she thought she buried, she leaned close and spoke to the dying man, as if he could hear her. "Stay with me, Marine." The words landed heavier than the sound of breaking glass. A woman near the end cap frowned. "Did she just say Maureen?" her husband whispered, eyes never leaving the hands driving down on the old man's chest. No one answered. The woman in blue didn't hear them. Her world had narrowed to inches and seconds, to the give of cartilage, the resistance of bone, the clock screaming inside her head. She counted, breathed, adjusted, relentless. Sweat slid down her temple. Her jaw tightened. This wasn't a grocery store anymore. Not to her. This was ground she knew. Around them, fear shifted into awe. People backed away without being told. The man who'd frozen earlier dropped to his knees, useless but willing. "What do you need?" he asked. She didn't look up. "Time me," she said, "and don't let anyone stop me." His chest stayed still. Too still. The color in his face drained to a dull gray that made people flinch. "Is he dead?" someone asked. Too loud. Too soon. The woman didn't answer. She leaned in, sealed her mouth, gave 2 breaths, watched his chest rise, then dropped back into compressions without pause. Down, hard, fast. Her arms burned. She welcomed it. Pain meant she was still in the fight. A siren wailed somewhere far off, not close enough. Not yet. A cartwheel squealed as it rolled away. Glass crunched under a shoe. Time stretched, elastic and cruel. In her head, seconds stacked like sandbags. She pressed harder. Faster. "Stay," she whispered, not pleading, commanding. Around them, the store held its breath. Every eye followed her hands, realizing this stranger wasn't hoping for a miracle. She was making one. A man in a veteran's cap knelt closer, recognition flickering across his face as the medals pressed into the tile. "Sir," he said softly, like the word still mattered. She didn't correct him. She didn't slow. 2 minutes, the man timing said, voice thin, desperate. Her nod was sharp. The crowd had gone quiet now, the kind of silence that feels like judgment. Phones hovered, forgotten. Someone prayed. Her elbows locked. Her weight drove the motion. She felt ribs give and kept going. Better broken than gone. The siren grew louder, then faded behind walls and traffic. Not here yet. Not enough. She leaned close again, voice iron, intimate and unyielding. "You don't get to quit here." The words weren't for comfort. They were an order. And somewhere beneath her hands, something fought back. The defibrillator arrived like thunder, red case slamming onto the floor as paramedics pushed through the circle. "Keep going," one of them said instantly, seeing her form, trusting it. She didn't stop until hands replaced hers, until authority met authority. When she finally pulled back, her arms shook, breath ragged, knees numb. The monitor screamed, then flattened, then spiked into chaos. Clear. The shock snapped his body hard. A gasp tore from the crowd. Silence followed, then a beat. Another. Weak, stubborn, real. "We've got a pulse," someone said, disbelief breaking through training. The woman in blue stood, already stepping away, eyes scanning exits, calculating distance, escape. The job was done. Around her, people cried, hugged, laughed in shock. No one noticed her slipping into the aisle, leaving behind a man who would live, and a question no one there knew how to ask. She moved fast, but not frantic, shoulders squared, head down, blending back into the ordinary noise she had shattered minutes earlier. A paramedic called after her, "Ma'am, we need your name." But the words dissolved in the scrape of the gurney and the hiss of oxygen. She didn't turn. Turning meant questions. Questions meant doors she had sealed shut. In the parking lot, cold air hit her lungs like a slap. Her hands shook now, violent and uncontrollable, adrenaline dumping all at once. She leaned against her car, eyes closed, counting breaths the way she once counted compressions in, out. Again. Through the automatic doors, she could still hear it, the distant urgency, the echo of sirens pulling away. A life saved. A past reopened. She started the engine and drove, leaving behind spilled sauce, broken glass, and a 4-star general who would wake up alive, wondering who she was and why her voice sounded like war. The ambulance doors slammed, and the noise swallowed her. But the words stayed. "Stay with me, Marine." They echoed in her head as she drove, knuckles white on the steering wheel, traffic crawling like nothing had happened. In the back of the rig, Robert Hayes floated in and out, oxygen hissing, monitors chirping, the smell of plastic and antiseptic dragging him back from somewhere dark. A paramedic leaned close. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered. No memory. Just fragments. Pressure. Falling. A voice that cut through the dark like a blade. Marine. The word snagged in his mind. Unfamiliar here. Painfully familiar everywhere else. At a red light, she rested her forehead against the wheel, eyes burning, knowing she had crossed a line she swore she never would again. Behind her, sirens faded. Ahead of her, a life she had tried to live without looking back. 3 days later, the machines kept him alive before he could keep himself alive. Tubes, wires, a steady electronic pulse replacing the certainty he once commanded in men. Robert Hayes opened his eyes to antiseptic light, and the weight of breath forced into him. Eleanor sat at his side, fingers locked around his hand, eyes red, jaw tight. The look she wore only when fear had nowhere left to go. "You're here," she whispered, voice breaking. He tried to speak. Nothing came out but air. A doctor explained words like massive heart attack and narrow margins and luck he hadn't earned. One sentence cut through everything else. If CPR hadn't started immediately, you wouldn't be alive. His mind caught on that. Immediately. Not eventually, not maybe. Someone had acted. Someone had known exactly what to do. As Eleanor cried into his hand, Robert stared at the ceiling, already searching for a face he couldn't remember, and a voice that still felt like an order. "Who did it?" he rasped when his voice finally worked, the words scraping his throat raw. Eleanor looked at the doctor, then back at him, shaking her head. "No one knows," she said. She left. The idea irritated him more than the pain. People didn't just vanish after missions. Someone always left a name, a trail, a report. "What did they say?" he pressed. The nurse hesitated. Witnesses said she was precise, commanding, not panicked. That narrowed it. Robert closed his eyes, replaying the fragments. A weight on his chest, a voice cutting through the dark. "Marine." The word sat there, heavy, impossible to ignore. He opened his eyes again, sharper now. "Find her," he said, not asking. Eleanor exhaled, knowing the tone. The general was back. "I owe her my life," he continued. "And Marines don't walk away from debts." Phones started ringing before his strength fully returned. Old contacts, retired officers, men who still answered on the first ring because they always had. "I need a name," Robert said, voice low, controlled. "Female. Medical training. Saturday morning at Oakmont Plaza." Questions came. He cut through them. "She saved my life." That was enough. Security footage was pulled. Grainy. Incomplete. A blur in a blue jacket moving with purpose. Paramedics confirmed what he already suspected. That wasn't civilian CPR, one of them said. That was professional. Combat level. The word lodged itself in Robert's chest. Combat. He stared at the still image on a tablet, the woman's face hidden by the crowd. Somewhere out there was someone who spoke his language without knowing who he was. Someone who had given orders to death and been obeyed. Robert leaned back against the pillows, pulse steady now, resolve sharper than pain. The search had begun. A week passed before the call that changed everything. A store employee, voice unsure, said a customer had come back asking who to talk to. She heard something, the manager explained. Robert sat straighter, heart monitor beeping faster. The woman arrived that afternoon, purse clenched, eyes darting like she expected to be scolded. "I wasn't eavesdropping," she said quickly. "I was close." When she was doing CPR, she said something. Robert leaned forward. "What did she say?" The woman swallowed. She said, "Stay with me, Marine." The room went still. Eleanor's hand tightened on his. "Marine. Not sir. Not Mr. Marine." Robert felt it click into place, the way pieces always did before a plan came together. That wasn't a word civilians used under pressure. That was a language learned when lives depended on it. He nodded once, calm and certain. "That tells me exactly who I'm looking for." Records moved faster once the search had a spine. Female Marines, medical specialty, discharged within the last decade. Northern Virginia. The list narrowed from hundreds to dozens, to one name that made the room go quiet. Emily Carter, former staff sergeant, combat medic. 2 deployments, Afghanistan, medical discharge after a vehicle rollover. Robert read the file twice, then a third time, recognizing the cadence of a life built under pressure. Reports described calm under fire, hands steady when others broke, decisions made without permission, because waiting meant death. He closed his eyes, hearing the voice again, feeling the certainty in it. That wasn't coincidence. That was training. That was identity. He handed the tablet back, pulse even, expression settled. "Find her," he said, softer now, more personal. "And when you do, don't warn her." Across town, Emily finished a night shift and went home, unaware that the past she had buried had just been given a name and a direction. The message found her at 2 a.m, folded into a scrap of paper by a supervisor who wouldn't meet her eyes. "General Robert Hayes would like to speak with you regarding an incident at Oakmont Plaza." Emily stared at the words until they blurred. Her stomach tightened. He had lived. Worse, he had remembered enough to come looking. She drove home at dawn with the radio off, hands steady on the wheel, heart anything but. In her apartment, the silence pressed in. She could ignore it. She could pretend the note had never existed, that life was over. But the voice in her head didn't allow that lie. Marines don't disappear when they're called. She sat on the edge of the bed, phone heavy in her palm, and dialed. It rang twice. "This is Hayes," the voice said, calm, unmistakable. Emily closed her eyes. "Sir," she replied, "this is Emily Carter." "Thank you for saving my life," he said, not softly, not loudly, but with the weight of someone who understood exactly what that sentence cost. Emily swallowed. "I did my job," she replied, instinctive, defensive. "You did far more than that," Hayes said. A pause, deliberate. "I heard what you said to me." Her breath caught. He continued before she could retreat. "There is a ceremony at the Marine Corps Reserve Center in 2 weeks. I need you there." The word "need" landed like an order, disguised as a request. Emily stared at the wall, mind racing. "Sir, I'm not active duty," she said. "I don't belong at ceremonies." Hayes didn't argue. He didn't persuade. "Once a Marine," he said, voice steady. "Always a Marine." Silence stretched. Emily closed her eyes, knowing resistance was already gone. "Yes, sir," she answered. The auditorium filled before she was ready. Dress blues, polished shoes, medals catching light she tried not to look at. Emily took a seat in the front row, hands folded to keep them from shaking, feeling invisible and exposed at the same time. When Robert Hayes walked on stage, the room rose as one. He didn't scan the crowd. He looked straight at her. His voice carried, steady, unforgiving. He told the story of a Saturday morning, a heart that stopped, a woman who did not. He spoke of precision, of command, of a voice that cut through death. Murmurs rippled when he repeated the words. "Stay with me, Marine." Emily's chest tightened. This wasn't gratitude. This was recognition. Hayes paused, then said her name, rank included. The room went silent. In that silence, Emily understood the twist she couldn't outrun. The past hadn't followed her here. It had been waiting. He opened a wooden case with hands that had once signed orders, sending men into war. Inside, the bronze star rested against blue velvet, older than some of the Marines in the room. A breath moved through the crowd, sharp and collective. "This medal has been on my chest for 3 decades, Hayes said, voice tight now. "It represents who I tried to be." He closed the case and stepped away from the podium, breaking protocol without hesitation. "Staff Sergeant Emily Carter," he said, and held the medal up. "You earned this when you refused to let a Marine die." Emily stood on instinct, legs unsteady, the room tilting as she walked forward. He lifted the ribbon and placed it over her head, the metal warm from his hands. "This belongs to you now." The room erupted. Cheers. Salutes. Tears. Emily's breath left her all at once as the truth settled heavy and real against her chest. The standing ovation didn't feel like noise. It felt like weight, pressing in from every direction. Emily's knees gave before she could stop them. Hayes caught her without thinking, steady as if this were just another moment that required control. Cameras flashed. Someone shouted her name. She couldn't hear any of it. All she felt was the medal against her collarbone and the truth she had spent years avoiding. She hadn't left anything behind. She had carried it with her into every quiet shift, every ordinary day. Hayes spoke again, quieter now, and the room leaned in. He talked about service that doesn't end, about lives lived without recognition, about debts that cannot be repaid, only honored. When he finished, he saluted her. She returned it, crisp and automatic, muscle memory cutting through the tears. In that exchange, something broke open. Not pride, permission. The video spread before she could stop it, shaky and imperfect, filmed from the back row, but honest in a way polished speeches never are. People didn't share it because of medals or rank. They shared it because they recognized something real. A woman who never asked to be seen. A man who refused to let gratitude die quietly. In homes, in break rooms, in late-night hospital corridors, the story landed and stayed. Emily went back to work. Same blue scrubs. Same night shift. The bronze star pinned above her name caught the light and started conversations she no longer avoided. Somewhere between saving lives and raising a child, she stopped hiding. Some identities never fade. They wait. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe for more stories that matter, and comment. Stay with us.